Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the day 5 of this week's Wellbeing Live sessions. I'm Nicole, tuning in to you from Guatemala, and happy to be here with you today to discuss one last and very important topic for this week. So let's get started. So for those of you, in case you missed yesterday, just quickly recapping what we looked at, it was the amazing power of the breath and how we can manipulate the breath to achieve well-being, to manage situations of conflict, and in general to achieve relaxation and do something that helps our body, it helps our mental energy as well as our emotional energy. So we looked at how incredible the breath is because it is an involuntary mechanism in the body, but it does so many wonderful, amazing things, and it allows us to change our emotional states and mental states of being. The breath allows us to come to the present moment only when we shift our energy and our attention to it. So that's very powerful when we are in some kind of a stressful situation and we're trying to figure things out with our mind, but really sometimes we need to just take a step back, and that's why breathing allows us sort of to come back to center when we bring our attention to the breath and that experience. We looked at some of the amazing science behind the benefits of the breath, and I won't go through all of those here, but the breath and breathing exercises and techniques are really amazing because they strengthen our organs, they strengthen our tissues, they allow us to develop a controlled relaxation response in the body with a continued breathing practice. It allows us to bring down the mental noise at times when we reduce the rhythm of the breath. It's also very good for immunity because we are breathing and we are strengthening, like I said, the organs. We are oxygenating the blood, which is helping to regenerate cells and tissues. So there's many wonderful benefits, and this is an extremely studied area, so information is readily available for you to check out. And the meat of the matter was that we were actually looking at how we can manipulate the breath, and I presented 3 techniques to do that. And these techniques are things that I use for different times of the day. So the first one is a mindfulness breath meditation. And I like to do this in the morning before I reach for the phone or engage into anything of the new day. I like to come to a center point and to grounding. And so the breath meditation is a wonderful way to do that. And over time, with a daily practice, you can actually reduce stress and anxiety. The second one is the breath of fire, or the Kapalbhati practice, a breathing technique. And this is really good in the mornings as well, or in the afternoons when we tend to tire out a bit. This is an active breathing technique that we can use to create alertness in the mind. And finally, the deep belly breathing technique, which is wonderful for 2 different types of occasions. Number one, when you're having trouble sleeping because your mind is so active, a deep belly breathing technique is wonderful because it allows everything to slow down. The response in the body slows down, the brain activity slows down, therefore the mental activity slows down. And this is also very useful when we are in situations that are difficult, when we are dealing with difficult people, when we are frustrated. And this gives us a moment to pause before we might react in a way that we would regret. So that's what we went over yesterday. And now let's move on to today's topic, which is about self-worth and creating value for others. And I really I'm very happy to end with this week with this topic because it is something that I've been exploring over the last year. And I have seen really some wonderful benefits, experienced some wonderful benefits and changes myself. So we're just going to go over the difference between self-worth and self-esteem, because you're probably wondering, what is this all about? We're going to also look at why self-worth is so important in the current context of coronavirus. And finally, we're going to see how self-worth not only benefits ourselves, but it benefits others, and especially when we are doing business in times of COVID-19 crisis and transition. But before we get into anything, as I like to do, we're going to do a quick reflection exercise. And so I'd like for you to have a look at these bubbles here. They're in no particular order or size or anything, but I'd like for you to take a moment and see here, what beliefs do you currently hold in these areas of your life in the current context of COVID-19? And so you can see here, there's different aspects. I mean, these are only a few. There's obviously more. But essentially, what kind of a relationship are we having to all of these different aspects of our life? So just giving you a moment here. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm just going to list out here just a few different things, and they may or may not relate to you in this time, but this is basically just to have a little bit of reflection, which is valuable in order to understand what it is that we're going to be looking at today in terms of self-worth. So I think the first one is very relevant. I am only worthy of love, respect, admiration, XYZ, you can fill in the blank, when I'm productive and making money. So this is an assessment, I think, that maybe some of you that are tuning in can relate to. I certainly have am guilty of this as well, and it's a natural thing, of course. These are difficult times, and there's a lot of things that are out of our control, that have been taken out of our control, and so we are having to cope and deal with a new situation. I'm not doing enough and being productive enough with all the time in quarantine. This one, I think, is also something very relatable to a lot of us out there, because we are placing some kind of pressure on ourselves that we must create things, that we must be productive or reach some certain goals in order to feel good about ourselves, in order to feel that, hey, you know what, I've used this time wisely, and this is everything that I've done, and so I can feel good about myself, versus versus the opposite of really perhaps not feeling that that you're in a place where you can create. I don't have a plan if things go badly with the current situation, to protect my health, to help my family. If my family members get sick, this is definitely something that I think a lot of us are experiencing as well. And of course, the current situation, because this has all happened, there's a lot of things that we feel unprepared for. I feel so fortunate and yet guilty because my conditions are better than others. I am alone and in quarantine because I haven't made good decisions. So I have friends that are quarantining by themselves and wondering, how did I get here? Why do I not have company? The loneliness, the isolation. All these things start to have an impact. And of course, there's this self-reproach. I haven't made good decisions for myself in my relationships, the, what if this, what if that. I need to maintain a fit appearance in quarantine because when this is through, so another kind of condition that we place on ourselves here. I must struggle in order to deserve success and be successful. When others recognize my efforts to get ahead, I can finally feel good about myself. We're going to look into this and how this relates to self-esteem, to that conditioned relationship with ourselves. I look foolish to others when I ask questions. I'm not being attentive and supportive to my children. This is something also, that can be intensified in this current transition, because we are, again, having to balance out so many things, our responsibilities, duties, and feeling guilty because we are not doing them in the way that we are used to doing them. The added strain of the current situation is really affecting our performance, our relationships, the way that we engage with others. So let me come back to you here. Okay, so I wanted to talk about self-worth and self-esteem, and basically shed a little bit more light on the distinction between these two concepts. So when we're talking about self-esteem, we're actually talking about a relationship that is based on conditions. So it's about having status. If I have status, if I have a role before other people, I feel good about myself. If I have money, coming into the bank, a successful career, I feel good about myself. If I don't have those things, I don't know who I am. I don't feel, I don't have a good relationship in that sense, because I need those things. Those things validate, in a sense, my identity. For the younger group, financial freedom, having financial freedom is so important. And some of us may have achieved that, and now we're back to zero. In many cases, we've been furloughed, laid off. So many, situations have happened, and now that, that creates this, it creates space for self-reproach, for doubt, and of course, seeking the validation of others. What can I do to feel better about myself? Having other people perhaps recognize me and my efforts and the work that I'm doing, being productive, and basically relying on the recognition of other people to feel that we are worthy, that we are deserving. Now the opposite end is self-worth, and self-worth is, it's not based on the outside. It's not based on anything external or anything external changing, which it does, clearly. Self-worth is completely internal. It is not based on any kind of conditions. It is, in that sense, an absolute freedom from conditions, and it is an unconditional loyalty and friendship with yourself, no matter what situation you are dealing with. And especially in the worst times, you are that best friend to yourself. You drop the conditions, you drop the self-reproach. If your job is insecure right now, of course there's a lot of feelings that you're having. There's a lot of thoughts, fear, fear-based thoughts. We talked about this in the first day. feeling that you are not worthy, that you are not enough because these external conditions have changed. So self-worth really, in a sense, it protects us from all that because we are not dependent on those things to have a good relationship with ourselves. A relationship that is not based on, if I do this, then I will feel good about myself. Or I should have done that, or I could have done this other thing. So it is an absolute freedom to choose that you will be a best friend to yourself no matter what happens. And especially in times like these. So I'm going to bring you back here just so that you can see. So just so you can see what we reviewed. So the self-esteem is having a conditioned relationship with yourself, and it is conditioned on some of these factors, and of course there's more. But of course we seek the validation of others to feel good about ourselves. Status allows us to feel good about ourselves. Money, buying acquisition, having financial freedom, as I was mentioning before, having the perfect relationship. Also those networks that somehow make us feel, okay, we are somebody. And without them, all of a sudden we feel that we are nothing, nobody. Material possessions. And on the flip side, self-worth is an absolute freedom from validation. So you can drop the self-reproach. And when you do that, you can actually be interested in other people. You're not preoccupied with how you're looking, how you're doing, seeking that validation. And you can create value, which when we get towards the end, we'll discuss how this is so important when we are doing business in times of COVID-19. So just coming back to you here. So we've now discussed the difference between self-worth and self-esteem. And why is this so important? Why did I include this today? Because we are in a time of crisis, because there's so much out of our control, and because unfortunately we are a bit unprepared to face the current situation. That means that there's a lot of mental and emotional energy being consumed by all of these thoughts, these self-esteem based thoughts. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of worry of our health, of our job security, of the future. There's a lot of guilt. Guilt if we're not doing things right. Guilt if we're not, feel that we are parenting in the right way. If we are guilty because we can't support everybody that we know is in need and is in maybe a more difficult situation than us. So there's a lot of mental and emotional challenges that we are going through at this time. So self-worth is very important because it allows us to not have this self-reproach. It allows us to have this unconditional loyalty to ourselves. And when we are able to drop the conditions, the self-reproach, self-worth actually allows us to make conscious and better decisions for ourselves. The expression of self-worth is actually prioritizing your health and well-being. So I wake up in the morning and I like to do 10-15 minutes of mindfulness meditation. Why? Because this helps me with stress and anxiety. So I prioritize that. That is my expression of self-worth. It may be something different for you. Maybe it's getting up early and maybe going outside and just being in nature, or doing some kind of other soothing activity. That's an expression of your self-worth. And so with that, you make decisions because you know that they are good for you. You know that they help you. So another example is getting enough sleep, getting to bed at a time where you have enough hours to sleep, because you know how much your body, how much your physical body, how much your mental energy and capacity will thank you for it the next day. So in that sense, we are able to be more intentional with how we spend our time planning, doing, relating. And once we're able to do that, we are resilient. And we need resilience in this time. We need resilience in times of crisis to be able to recover from the challenges, the setbacks. And once we have, once we take care of ourselves, we can be useful to others. And that's what I want to talk about in the next portion, which is self-worth in business, doing business. So when we're not seeking validation from others, when we're not asking ourselves, how do I look? How are people perceiving me? We can actually focus our attention on being useful, on being helpful, on actually creating value where value is needed. We want to help others. We are interested in others. If we're working in a team, we want to make a meaningful contribution. We don't just talk to talk. We actually want to contribute something of value to the table when we discuss a project. We want to help our team reach the goals. Our clients' needs are also changing. I want to help my clients. I'm not preoccupied with how I'm looking or how I'm being perceived. I just want to add value and create value where value is needed. So one important aspect in this time is networking, which is something that we can do from our computer very easily. And one way to put self-worth in action is being interested in others, asking questions, finding out how are you dealing with the current challenges, what is needed, how is this affecting or impacting your business. So genuinely being curious and open and connecting to others and wanting to create value with others is part of self-worth in action, because we are no longer preoccupied with ourselves. So let me come back to you here on the screen. So this is the recap. The recap of self-worth, well, as it states there, it's a freedom of unconditional loyalty and friendship with yourself, no matter what. And of course, this is extremely important as we are in times of COVID-19, where there's so much uncertain and so much out of our control. And a lot of times we can get very bogged down mentally and emotionally with the burden of self-reproach. So with self-worth, we change all of this around, and we no longer preoccupy our minds with ourselves, with seeking validation from others. We actually want to be useful to other people. We want to create value where value is needed. And we're able to make purposeful decisions that help our health and well-being, that are good for us. We take care of ourselves. So we are focused, calm, and confident. So let me come back to you this way. So I hope that was interesting and insightful. Self-worth, as I said, it's a beautiful topic that I've been exploring over the past year, and I've definitely seen its effects and impacts on me this is just a little introduction, but there's so much more. There's so much more related to this topic. And if you are interested, I would love to connect with you and see how I can support you in this transition. So I hope that this week has been useful and valuable, and again, that anything that you've learned here, you're able to apply today in order to, have well-being today, because this is really the mission and the objective of these sessions. So I will part with that, and just to let you know that you can book a session with me, and we can explore any of the topics that we have been bringing to the live sessions this week. Whether you want to jumpstart a healthy routine for physical, mental, emotional health, perhaps you're interested in starting some kind of a yoga practice and you're a beginner and you're not sure where to start, or perhaps a meditation practice but you're a bit afraid, or you'd like to have some kind of a routine for stress and anxiety. And I can totally understand you there, because we are human and we are all in the same boat, but we're dealing with it in different ways. And finally, I think I was mentioning this in the last sessions, that I'm offering a virtual retreat program, and this is a 7-day program where you will work with me over 3 sessions. And then you will have actually a daily routine that incorporates a lot of these different things that we discussed in order to enhance the relationship with yourself, to prevent stress and anxiety, to have a meditation practice incorporated as well. But all of this is tailored to your needs and to your interests. So I hope to hear from you. Feel free to book a session with me, and we will be in touch. And I hope to see you all soon again.